So, you want to try out Salvation's Edge and get that new exotic, or you just want to beat the raid because it's probably one of the hardest yet funnest raids that Destiny 2 has ever made yet. Well, regardless if you're trying to watch the video for entertainment or you're trying to actually learn the raid so you can beat it yourself, sit back, relax, because this is probably the easiest Salvation's Edge guide you'll ever hear. So let's start off with this raid's new mechanic. It's a timer mechanic and it's located at the top of your screen. So you'll have a countdown for each encounter to be able to complete it. This is refreshed by utilizing a new mechanic called the resonance buff. However, all encounters have a max timer in which does not require all players to have a total of 3 times resonance. So let's start with the first encounter. First, you want to split into 2 teams of 3. One team will be a left team and the other will be the right team. Start the encounter by picking up the resonance buff and then depositing it into the chest located in the middle of the room. You'll see the witness's hands do an area of effect triangle attack within the room. This is telegraphed and should be avoided at all times. Both the hand and the area of effect could kill you. Harpies will spawn from 2 doors. The left team will go through the left door and will always continue to go left, while the right team will go through the right door and will continue to go right. For time, skip killing the ads in the first room and go straight to the second room. Killing the Hydra opens the door for your teammates on the other side going the opposite way. This will ping pong until one room spawns a Minotaur or an Overlord champion. Once you kill that Overlord champion the first time, this will spawn a Tormentor that will actually mark this room as your first plate room. I will explain what this plate does later. After the Tormentor spawns, you could tell by a distinct noise it makes when one normally appears. It sounds like this. Once you hear it, as a team, all members must go to the center where you begin the encounter to kill it. If not, you'll get stuck in a room alone where you'll have to kill a Hydra to leave. After killing the Tormentor, you'd have activated one conduit successfully. Once completed, more Harpies will appear out of 2 new doors for you to go left and right in. When you get to the end and kill the second Overload champion, a second Tormentor will appear. To make it easier on the team, all players go to the middle again and kill that Tormentor. Once you've completed this step, find the room with a plate that's glowing yellow like this. For one team, after killing the first Overlord champion, you'll find this room as you kill ads the second time. This will be your starter plate. That will be now called plate 1. Check the adjacent rooms for a totem that appears with a glowing shape in the middle. This typically should be the room opposite the direction you came from to open it. The plate located in this room is the closing plate, which I will now call plate 2. The goal within those 2 teams of 3 is to designate a person for plate 1 and plate 2. The third person will be ad clearing in between both rooms. This is important because sometimes a subjugator will spawn depending on the upcoming mechanics that I'll explain. The objective of the members assigned to plate 1 and plate 2 is to generate resonance. The more of these that you pick up, the more time that you'll have to complete this encounter in later stages. Be careful though, if you pick up more than 3, you will instantly die. The amount that you have is located on the bottom left side of your screen, so be careful where they're located. You'll create these resonance by the person on plate 1 stepping on it while it's glowing to send through the red conductor lines located on the floor to plate 2. This is also the second indication on if your partner is in the correct room. Once plate 2 receives the charge, it will start glowing. Be careful though, you should only step on this plate once the glow starts to change colors like this. If you step on it anytime before, or if you step on it too late, it will break the charge and a subjugator will spawn in the starting plates room, or plate 1's room. This is a reoccurring theme within the raid, and when this happens, it's recommended that both plate 2 Guardian and the ad clear within that team both run to assist plate 1 in killing it. Why would you do this? because the subjugator will disrupt the power within Plate 1's room to where you cannot ping pong anymore. After dealing with the subjugator, Plate 2 should return to their rooms and prepare to close the conduit to trigger the next encounter mechanic. In order to do this, Plate 1 and Plate 2 should be gathering all the resonance they find on the ground within the room, in between ping-ponging the energy on the ground between each other. The ad clear on both sides should be acquiring their resonance within the middle of the map where you find the tormentor. Once all members have all or near 3 resonance, in order to close the totem, Plate 2 should shoot the totem at the glowing yellow shape prior to Plate 1 sending the final conduit, so that this energy will this time, instead of being transferred back to Plate 1, it will go to the totem and glow distinctively different to show that you have completed the cycle. An item of note, once closed, all of the resonance in both rooms will disappear, so be sure to pick up all 3 prior to closing it. Also, once you do close the totem, the person who shot the resonance will lose a stack of resonance. This is intentional. What I recommend is both players find their rooms and ping pong the energy by stepping on plates 3 times each. While doing this, do your best to collect as many resonance within the room as you can prior to the energy being sent back to your plates. If you're quick enough, once your group has gathered enough resonance from the ground, you should break the conduit's connection intentionally to spawn the subjugator. Both Plate 2's guardian and the ad clear from your team should go to Plate 1's room and kill the subjugator. Once this is done, you will have plenty of time to do your last call on plates, for player 2 can shoot the totem without rushing too much. Once it's shot, player 1 will send it to player 2 to close the conduit for the last time. If you're savvy, you could close the conduit as you and Plate 1's guardian is doing the ping pong, and you can shoot the totem from anywhere in the room, just as long as the person that shot it is the person that's standing on the plate in the end. This is something that must be completed for both the left and right team. Once completed successfully, both totems will close and one more subjugator will spawn in the middle of the room for the team to kill. Once defeated, the resonance chest will spawn again in the middle of the room. As a team, deposit all of your resonance and be sure that they are removed from your screen, as your team can only deposit resonance 1 guardian at the time. Don't be too worried by the time crunch, however, because once the first person deposited successfully, the game will give you some additional time immediately for your remaining members to deposit until finally refreshing to potentially full time, depending on how many resonance each person has. Once deposited, a full cycle will be complete, and you will have to begin by killing harpies and 2 tormentors again prior to charging another totem. You'll have to do this successfully 3 times to complete the encounter and move to the next stage. Some recommended weapons. Well, there are no actual bosses in this encounter. However, I do recommend machine guns to deal with both ads as well as tormentors and subjugators. Other than that, I recommend crowd control abilities and weapons like the Warlock's Cold Snap grenades, as supers can be used at any time. Now it's time for the second encounter, Dissipation. Split teams into 3 teams of 2. There's a left side, a middle, and a right side on the map. Before starting the encounter, if you're new, I recommend you go to your designated side and find both the totem and 2 plates for your team to stand on. You can find the starting plate by following the line from the closing plate located closer towards the center of the map on each side back to the starting plate. Start the encounter by shooting the blight at the center of the map. If you've played on the designated side enough, you will see 2 knights and some ads that will spawn on both sides of the area. Once all killed, 1 more knight and a yellow bar boss will spawn on one side of the platform. As a pair, work to kill that yellow bar wizard, ogre, or minotaur, depending on your area. Once you've killed the wizard, 3 people will receive a buff which is labeled Call to Reckoning and will have a green icon at the top portion of your screen, as well as a call out in the bottom left. An easy way to determine who has it is as a pair. If you don't see the green at the top of your screen, then it means your partner has received this buff. I will explain what this buff means in a minute. Once you've killed the yellow bar boss, this will unlock access to be able to spawn resonance on the ground similar to the first encounter. You do this by you and your partner ping-ponging the conduit between each other by first stepping on the starting plate or plate 1 whenever you see it's glowing, and intercepting it by stepping on the closing plate or plate 2 with the correct window indicated by the plate on the ground. You'll ideally want to step on whenever you see it's charging and glowing a brighter color. Send the energy between each player by stepping on the plate a total of 2 times each. What will make this encounter significantly easier for all teams is whenever you are designating team members for each side, also assign each team member to pick up a specific resonance. Identify this as either being the circle guy or the triangle guy. If you're the triangle guy, your goal is to only pick up triangle resonance that pops up on the ground. You can identify this by the pyramid that shows glowing within the resonance. Similarly, if you're the circle guy, you will pick up all the sphere resonance. Also to note, for each team side, the particular shaped resonance will spawn in the same general area. For example, I am on the left side of the map where the wizard spawns. My triangle resonance will always spawn in these 3 locations. What will trigger all 3 to spawn is by you and your partner both stepping on both plates within the correct timing, a total of 2 times each. Once gathered, I recommend only grabbing the 2 furthest resonance away from the middle of the map. Understand that you should only grab what is your shape, and leaving the last resonance buff for each player closest to the boss on the ground is important in case you die or for refreshing the timer while holding that buff by grabbing the last one, because if it reaches 0, the result is also death. Whenever you do break the plate's energy flow, 1 more yellow bar boss will spawn along with a knight. Take this time to kill that yellow bar, then 1 or all of the guardians with the Call of Reckoning buff should go and jump in the middle to trigger the encounter's next mechanic. The players with Call to Reckoning are required to jump within the yellow glow around the middle platform where the boss is located. Once inside and you also have this buff, you could kind of damage the boss by shooting his head and spawning 3 blights. 1 will be located randomly on the left, middle, and right side of the map. Once all 3 blights are shot, the players within the middle must both be dodging the boss's blight attacks while shooting at the boss's head again once a mini blight appears. Once it appears, the 3 designated players should work to shoot the boss's head again until it bursts and root-looking things pop out. This will turn all 3 members with the Call of Reckoning buff into a different buff called Stolen Favor. Make note that no player with Call of Reckoning that steps inside the yellow barrier should step out until you get Stolen Favor, or the 3 blights will reset and you'll have to find and shoot them again. Also, if a player on your team dies while having Call of Reckoning, you will still get the Stolen Favor buff for your side even if Call of Reckoning is visually removed. You will not be able to damage the boss, however, you will still receive a buff change. Once you have acquired Stolen Favor, more knights and advents will spawn. By this time, you should have a comfortable minute remaining to either gather more resonance or clear out ads. The person with the Stolen Favor will now acquire the ability to look into the totems on that team's side and see a shape within it. That shape will either be a triangle or a sphere. The person with the buff will call out what they see. For example, if I am on the left side, I will say left side triangle or left side sphere. That person who has that shape should shoot the conduit to prime it similar to the first encounter, then gather the remaining resonance left on the ground if there are still some. After the totem is shot, be sure that the person who shot the totem is the one to stand on the closing plate or plate 2, while the person whose shape was not called out will go to plate 1 and send the conduit whenever the pair is ready. If done correctly, the energy will go to the totem and glow, signifying that you have completed the totem on your side. Once all 3 sides have completed their totem, then as a team, make your way to the front of the map and be sure to avoid the broken glass looking area by the hand, as it will deal damage and kill you. A chest will spawn again and you could deposit your remaining resonance into it and gain more time and damage the boss. As soon as you see that you have deposited your resonance, go to damage the boss immediately, because damage has started as soon as the first person deposits. I recommend doing a countdown prior to the first deposit to ensure the best damage. The boss will damage you and can kill you, so I recommend the Warlock's Song of Flame and Swords for the easiest DPS rotation. If max resonance have been deposited, the timer should reach about 3 minutes, and when it's around 2 minutes and 30 seconds, the damage phase should end. After you're done, each member should return to their spots to kill the yellow boss again and start ping-ponging plates. After a few rotations, you'll get to final stand and you should be safe and wait around if you are low on ammo to quickly finish off the boss. Some items of note: the witness will occasionally shoot artillery strikes around the arena, so avoid the area of effect telegraphed on the ground. And with that, you've completed the second encounter. After the second encounter, the first secret chest will be located after traversing through an area where you jump past platforms to scale the side of the wall. After some time, you will reach this red corridor room and will notice this yellow wall to the left, where you will find the first secret chest. So you've made it to the repository, and this encounter is probably one of the easiest encounters to clear as a team. Start by splitting into 3 teams of 2. Within these teams, designate a starting plate player or plate 1 and a closing plate player or plate 2. Similar to the second encounter, you will have to ping pong the conduits between you and your partner to create resonance around your area to eventually close the conduit by shooting the glowing totems. You will start the encounter by depositing the initial resonance within the chest. In the beginning of this encounter, 3 tormentors will spawn at the front of the map. You and your partner will choose a tormentor to defeat together prior to beginning the plate ping pong phase. Note that the person who gets the last hit on the tormentor will be the one to receive a stolen favorite buff. The stolen favorite buff from each of these tormentors will give you the ability to see the shapes that's required for each totem. By looking at the glow within each totem, these symbols will be either a square, a circle, or a triangle. Similar to the second encounter, however, this time designate a teammate as the circle team, the square team, or the triangle team. This can be easiest determined by the shapes that spawn on each side of the map after creating them by ping-ponging the energy current on the ground. For example, triangles will always spawn on the right side of the room, while circles will spawn in the middle. Lastly, squares will spawn on the left side. The easiest way to complete this encounter is as follows. Both plate 2 and their partner from plate 1 should both run to the front of the room to damage the tormentor in their area. The player designated for plate 1 should only damage the tormentor until their health is low enough for the plate 2 player to easily finish off and gain the stolen favor buff. Once the Plate 2 player from each team kills the tormentor that spawns on each side of the room, they can begin to ping pong the conduit with their partner. Be careful, however. After killing the tormentors, turrets will spawn in the high areas of the map. This will probably be the biggest headache if you forget to look up and kill them in time. After creating each resonance, which should be about 2 ping pongs each, you can do 3 times to be safe. You and your partner should then break the resonance, which, similar to the first encounter, it will spawn a subjugator. The Plate 1 player on each side should once again make their way to the front of the room to assist the Plate 2 player with killing the subjugator. The person with the final blow does not matter, and killing the subjugator will turn the power back on to each plate. After killing the subjugator, both Plate 1 and 2 should gather their remaining designated shape in that area. Remember, the max stats that you could gain without dying should remain 3. After gaining resonance, or while you're gathering it, each player with a stolen favor buff should call out which shape is located on each side of the room by looking at the glowing totem on their side. This will notify each Plate 2 player where they should adjust. Once each of the players with their designated shapes is at their designated totems, as a team you should give a 3-2-1 call out when closing the totem conduit. Just a reminder, you can shoot the totem shape at any time from any location on the map with its designated correct shape. However, the player that shoots it must remain the player to close the particular plate. Once each totem has been correctly closed, the resonance chest will spawn back in the middle of the room for your team to deposit for more time and go to the next floor. Again, be wary, because once the chest spawns, turrets and unstoppable champions will block the doorway to the next area. Once killed, the doors will open for you to go to the next floor where you will do the same process. The difference with the second floor is that it'll be more spaced out, as well as all the lines leading from each Plate 1 will now lead to different locations for Plate 2. As you see on the map I have on screen, for the second floor, for the person on the middle Plate 2 and left Plate 2 plates will be swapped. The way to complete this easily is by doing all the callouts from the perspective of the Plate 1 player or the starting plate's position, as they will remain the same on each room. For example, within the second room, the Plate 1 player will still assist Plate 2 with killing the tormentor. Once killed, Plate 1 will still make it back to their same areas as in the first floor. Turrets will spawn again for you to destroy, and you should ping pong for the resonance in your area. Once you have gathered them and kill the subjugators as a pair for the first time within that floor again, all Plate 2 players should find their locations where the plates are located. The best way to close them without confusion on which are the correct plates is by having another 3-2-1 countdown after each closing plate player has confirmed that they shot their closing totem. This should also work the same whenever you begin creating resonance to mitigate the team confusion as well. My team traced the lines and understood when we said middle plate start ping pong, and understood that it was actually leading to the left. However, do as I say and not as I do, because sometimes LFG groups can be nightmares. Once you have completed this, another box will spawn in the middle of the room along with another unstoppable champion, and this time the third and final room. This layout is as follows on the screen. Complete the same sequence, while this time understanding each player does not need full or near full stacks of resonance, and complete the encounter by doing the final chest dunk using supers to kill the newly spawned ads at the end of the platform. For guns, I recommend ad clearing weapons like machine guns to deal with both red bars and tormentors. Otherwise, one-shot supers like golden gun, the sniper still hunt seems to work well too. And with that, you've completed the third encounter. So, you've made it to probably seemingly the hardest encounter for all LFG groups. And that's the fourth encounter, Verity. Or should we call it Fashion Shape. Now, to complete this encounter, there are multiple parts, but I assure you, this will probably be the best explanation for all LFG groups by far. First, you'll notice the 6 statues that are located in the front when you first drop into this encounter. These statues are actually the 6 guardians within your fire team, and they are utilized in a very important mechanic later on in this encounter. For now, just make note of their location. Next, you'll want to intentionally split your team into 2 teams of 3, one being the inside team and one being the outside team. I will first explain the inside team's objective. The people willing to be the inside team should cross the 6 statues in the beginning to go up towards the front. If you are behind these 6 statues, you will be the 3 teammates staying on the outside team. For the inside team, you'll want to interact with one of the 3 statues located in the front of the room. This will teleport you to an isolated area in a separate space from all of your teammates. Ads will spawn in this room, including 2 knights that are involved in the mechanic for being freed from this isolated space and returning to your teammates. Another thing you will notice is that there are 3 guardians on the statues going across the room, holding a specific shape. Make note of this shape as it is important for you to be released. One of the 3 guardians that are within the rooms will immediately call out the shapes on the statues in order from left to right. And this is what will allow the outside team to complete their task to also allow you to be freed. Someone should type the order of the shapes called from left to right in the chat so that it is easier for the outside team and it could eliminate unnecessary communication to an already complicated encounter. After calling out the order of the shapes from left to right and making note of the shape that your own statue is holding, you'll then want to look back at the wall and see the 2 black shapes that are flashing along the white wall. These shapes that are changing between each other is telling you that killing one of the knights located in your room will drop one of the shapes that is located on the wall. It is random which shapes will drop by which knight. However, it's guaranteed that a shape will drop if you at least see one located on the wall. The objective of escaping the room is to make sure that the 2 shapes that are flashing on the back wall are not identical to the one that you're holding in your hand. For example, I see that this is my guardian and I am holding a square. I'll look on my wall and I'll see a square and a triangle. I'll know that one of the knights will have the square that I'll want to get rid of, while the other will have the triangle that I want to keep flashing on the wall. What you'll want to do is trade the shapes that are dropped by the knights with the 2 other guardians that are stuck in an isolated room like you. You could do this by picking up the shape on the ground by interacting with it after killing a knight. You will then want to deposit that shape after recognizing that you've gotten the buff by looking at the left side of your screen. Deposit this shape by going up to a statue that's not your own and interacting with it to give it to somebody else. After doing this, you will also notice that the wall is either not flashing anymore with one shape, and that's telling you that you will only have one knight left or that will spawn in the next cycle, or you'll have a different shape show other than the one you've originally deposited flashing because your team member has also given you a shape. There will be times that you'll also have no shapes, being the triangle, square, or circle flashing, and it will look kind of like a loading screen spiked circle. And this will mean that you'll have no shapes and no knights will spawn in your room. You could fix this by having one of your teammates deposit additional shapes located in their room to the statue to give you one again. An item of note is that once you've killed both the knights located in the room, or one if you are only seeing one shape, an ogre will spawn and you'll have to kill it once again to be able to spawn 2 knights and 2 new shapes to hold. There are 2 main ways to complete this room, and the LFG way, or the most popular way, is to do this by adding an extra step to the process of trading shapes. You'll do this by looking at the wall located at the back wall. After identifying the shape on your statue, call out from left to right the order of the shapes for the outside team to complete their portion of the mechanic. So, for this example, I'm holding a circle. Then I'll look at the wall and see that it's flashing a triangle and circle. Now that I've added an additional step is to have the 2 shapes on the back wall flashing the same symbol as the one located in my statue's hand. Once again, the shape was circle, so I'll want to check the wall and also give my teammates the shapes that they are holding in their hands in their statues. This is done because you want to reset the wall to be able to easily distribute shapes to your other 2 teammates with little to no communication. How do you accomplish this, you might ask? Well, once you have 2 of the same shapes flashing on the wall that's identical to the one in your hand, you'll then want to give one of each of these shapes to the 2 statues that are not yours. What this will do, if done correctly, will guarantee that you'll have the 2 shapes that you'll require to leave the room. The 2 shapes will be opposite from the one that you're holding at the end. So for example, I'm seeing a triangle and square. After I've confirmed that I have the shapes that I need, I'll kill the 2 knights and will pick up both shapes from the ground that will give me a new buff that combines the 2 shapes and will allow me to leave the back room if the outside team has completed their task. Now, there is one more mechanic that the inside team should know about. After trading a few shapes between all teams, the witness will eventually notice your actions. It'll actually say it at the bottom right hand side of the screen. And doing this, the witness will petrify the 3 guardians inside the rooms, essentially killing them intentionally. In order to free your teammates, this will lead to the next mechanic, and this is where the final shape becomes the fashion shape. The outside team will have the 2 ad clearers pick up the ghosts of the guardians that have been petrified and correctly place them in the proper statues located in the back of the main rooms where you first start this encounter. Now, for how to number the statues placement, you should go from 1 to 6, from left to right for consistency. Also, if you're a quote-unquote dead player, you should spectate the guardian able to view the statue's location, as you're the only person who could see where one guardian should go that is also petrified that is not yourself. You can identify them by looking at one of the 3 glowing statues and seeing the silhouette of one of your team members, and during this phase it's only 3 guardians petrified to easily complete this mechanic, because if you're guessing the wrong statue, the person who inserts the ghost will die. You'll want to coordinate with your team by styling your guardian and the character customization to be distinct enough to easily describe, as well as have an easy to recognize ghost by either making it similar to your style or easy to call out. You'll then probably want to write a quick reference sheet in your notes and coordinate easy to say names, as well as having the same descriptions will save you from a team wipe later in this encounter. To keep organization, the callouts for describing ghosts should start by the person who can see the leftmost guardian's glowing statue first, and working your way to the right to break out of being petrified, and continuing the steps left off from being frozen in the inside world. Also, be careful. Currently, there is a bug where you will not be able to see your own gun, nor will you be able to see other guardians. If you are in this encounter and are one of the petrified guardians, you will also not be able to see the silhouette of the statue, and this is not an intended thing. You should restart your application to fix this. Also, an item of note, if you die in the inside world, you will have your character's res show up in the outside world, and one of the players in the outside world will be randomly spawned in the inside world. If you have teammates who are more comfortable in certain areas, you could die within the inside world intentionally to be placed in the outside world. Now, if you're on the outside team, this is the part where most teams get stuck on, because they are introducing 3D shapes and we signed up to play Destiny, not to go to geometry class. However, there's a very easy way to complete this method without these complicated guides. First, I'll put up this chart for combinations of shapes so that you could get somewhat familiar or use it as a reference while playing. Feel free to pause and screenshot it. You'll want to split your team to be 2 ad clears who will kill everything in the area except for the knights, with their second job being to free the 3 guardians from the inside world whenever their ghosts appear, which should have a blue indication on the screen like this. The third person will be in charge of opening the doors for the guardians stuck in the inside world. You'll do this by first listening to the call out made by the inside team of how the shapes are positioned going from left to right, which will be the key for the player in the outside. Now, before I get to the method of completing the encounter easily, you'll notice that the shapes on the statues are 3D shapes. If you refer to the reference sheet, this just means the statue has a combination of 2 shapes within that chart that'll make a 3D shape. Your goal is to have each statue from left to right hold a 3D shape without the shape called from the inside team. For example, the inside team called circle, triangle, square from left to right. When I look at the statues from left to right, you'll notice that each 3D shape has one of the shapes on each of the statues in the same order that's called from the inside room. Those are the shapes that you'll not want it to be holding to open the door for the inside players. Similar to the inside team, for the outside team, to get the shapes, you'll have to kill the knight. And as you look at the back wall, you'll notice all 3 shapes are flashing in black. This means that there are 3 knights and each will spawn one shape, being a circle, a triangle, or a square. After you've killed all 3 knights, 2 unstoppable champions will spawn. You can only swap one shape at a time, and to do so, you will have to grab the shape that you want and place it in a statue by interacting with it only if it has some 3D combination of that shape on its statue's hand. For example, I picked up triangle and placed it on this statue because this shape right here is a cone. I'll then take the shape that I'll want to swap it with and place it on another statue that has a combination of its 3D shape, that desired statue, and it will then swap those 2 shapes and create a new one. So to easily complete this mechanic, you'll want to kill a knight to spawn a shape on the ground. Then simply take that shape and place it on the statue in the same order as it was called in the chart. The current rotation is circle, triangle, square. If I took the time to examine each statue, I'll see that each of these have some form of that shape in its same order. So I will kill a knight for a triangle and then place it here. Then a knight for a circle and place it here. And while those 2 shapes are doing a swap, I'll kill the third knight and place his shape in the correct slot. After that, I'll check my other shapes and the chart and see if it's an incorrect shape by its identity on the chart. However, most cases, the odd shape out from the last swap would be a perfect sphere, cube, or pyramid. If I accidentally picked up the wrong shape, I could call and ask a teammate to get the right one and place it in the correct location for me. It's best to complete this sequence from left to right to keep consistency. When both the inside and outside team have done their parts correctly, the outside team will start to see the inside team pop out of thin air. Okay, so to elaborate on the very same example that I did, the call out was circle, triangle, square. And what I'm saying is outside, the two shapes that made the cylinder was both a circle and a square, as well as the two shapes that made a cone was a triangle and a circle. Last, the two shapes that made a prism was a square and a triangle. When I killed the knight, I picked up the triangle and swapped it with the circle in the other column. I did that because these two were the starting symbols, and it will automatically do that change when I do that swap. For the last knight, I killed it and primed it by placing the square in that statue. I would then have to look at all of the statues on the outside for that one shape that does not match or looks odd. And in this case, it was the middle shape. So I took a circle and swapped it with that square. And that was how I was able to unlock the door for my teammates. Once the last person from the inside team comes out, the countdown timer will stop, and then you'll have to kill 2 unstoppable champions on each side of the map until the witness notices your actions again. At this step, all guardians will become petrified except for one, so it's best to split up at this part. You'll have 1 minute on the clock, and this is where some teams or new players begin to panic. Just clear the communications chat and call out guardians' descriptions from left to right. If the one guardian alive gets the first statue wrong, it's a team wipe. If you're calm enough, the person who sees the statue can either call the guardian's name, because when petrified, you can still visually see the distinct features on guardians' headgear or chest gear, or you could continue to call out guardians by the team agreed upon names and ghosts to place them on a statue if you're in the LFG. The more people you free, the more people available to free others. If you keep calm on this part, you can complete it with clear communications. You'll then have to complete this again 2 more cycles or 3 times in total, with guardians spawning in the inside room being random for the next 2 rounds. As for weapons to use, you can use your best ad clear weapons and supers with ways to deal with unstoppable champions, as this encounter is more puzzle based. And with that, you've now completed fashion shape. I mean, you'll be going to the final shape. Prior to going to the final encounter, you will find the second secret chest after climbing the vine up to the right before the boss, and where you see this oddly giant leaf looking vine. Take this quick detour and you'll be at the second secret chest. Now, on to the witness, which is the final encounter, and man, does this guy throw hands. This is what all of Destiny 2 was leading up to, and this encounter was a fun one. Start by splitting your group up to 2 groups of 3. These groups will include 2 ad clears and 1 runner. One group will be designated to the left side of the field while the other is designated to the right. The goal of progressing this encounter is to gain a Glyph Keeper buff in order to shoot the buttons off the witness's shirt its endless mothers have made to agitate him for a damage phase. In order to do this, the 2 runners will have to identify an arms attack on the ground. After completing the encounter a few times, it'll get familiar. However, the arm that spawns a circle attack on the ground around its area, either on the left or right side, will be a hand coming out the ground that looks like this. Next, you'll have a hand that's considered a square, and its attack shoots a wall beam in the shape of a square on the ground that looks like this. In the beginning, it will always spawn on the opposite side of the arm with the circle attack. Lastly, you'll have the triangle attack, created by the arm that looks like it's coming from the sky. This will attack a player anywhere on the map, so it's sometimes hard to pinpoint its next telegraphed attack. There is a way to contain its attacks in one area, however, and that's by having all guardians kill ads near the same area, not to stray too far away. To obtain the Glyph Keeper buff, the 2 runners that have split into the left and right side should go for the square and circle arms respectively. This will make it easier for the wipe mechanic that happens randomly. To acquire the buff, you'll want to see where the attack is landing early enough to be able to stand in it quickly and shoot the golden braided bracelet spinning along the base of the arm, doing the attack and breaking it to display the resonance buff that you'll need to acquire to break and kill the arm for the Glyph Keeper buff. If you stand in it for too long, you will acquire a resonance buff of that shape that you do not want and will have to later cleanse. Because in this encounter, like the previous, if you are holding a resonance too long, or if you grab more than 3, you will automatically die. So while you're initially shooting the arm, you kind of want to jiggle in and out until it's confirmed to be shot. So I suggest something like auto rifles or machine guns to break. Once broken, it will display a color and a shape. Each shape has its own designated color. Yellow is a circle, red is square, and green is triangle. So if I shoot the arm of this wall attack, it will either show me a yellow circle on its band or a green triangle. It will never show its own shape. What you'll want to do is find the attack that's being telegraphed on the field, then intentionally stand in it long enough until you've gained the desired resonance buff. After gaining the required resonance, you'll then want to run back to the side that you were on originally to shoot the arm once more to break it and kill it. If done correctly, it will look like it breaks dimensions into multiple different arms and makes a screaming sound. You'll then have gained a Glyph Keeper buff and will be able to cleanse both you and other guardians with existing resonance stacks, as well as shooting one of the witness's buttons. To avoid more arms and attacks from spawning, I recommend both runners shooting the buttons near the same time, because once one player shoots more than one button faster than the other, more hands will spawn and the attacks will become more hectic. So even if you're a faster runner, wait for your teammate. You will have about 40 seconds prior to the damage phase. So my example of shooting the arm is like this. I am on the left side and I am seeing a circle. I will step in it and shoot as quickly as I can, making note that the later I arrive, the more likely I'll actually be hit by the incoming attack. Once I see the shape that I need, and in this case it's square, I'll then run to where I see the attack and will step in it, refraining from actually trying to shoot it too, I'll then go back to my original side, which was a stand in the resonance and shoot it again to gain the Glyph Keeper buff to shoot a button. If done as a pair of 2, this will take 3 cycles. And at any point between the 2nd and 5th button, when you shoot the arm, it'll have a different sound than its normal scream. It'll sound a little bit more scary. You will then, as a fire team, need to shoot the diamonds spawning in the middle of the room in the shape of the last arm broken to gain the Glyph Keeper buff. Once again, you can also best tell by the sound. What makes this part easy is that if your team has only shot the circle or the square arms, you'll only need to worry about making those 2 shapes. Once you've shot either the circle or a square correctly, the witness will do one more wipe mechanic where he will have a glow float up his body to his eyes. Once it glows and you hear a noise like 2 swords clashing in an anime or medieval movie, everyone in the fire team should jump and stay in the air as long as they can. Once complete, you could continue to gain the Glyph Keeper buff and damage the witness's buttons. Whenever you're on the last button, the runner should call for all players to go to the middle platform, then it's ready for damage. And a lot of players get confused with the damage rotation. However, I will give the easiest steps to stay alive every single time. Once the platform rises, you may have time for maybe 1 attack. However, the witness will quickly do a swipe attack across the platforms, requiring all members to move consistently. For this part, I highly recommend Warlock's Song of Flames. Next, the witness will do a series of 2 swipe attacks and then a jump attack, followed by a brief period to do real damage to his chest. There will be 3 cycles of attack, and within any of those cycles will be one that will involve the quick jump attack while moving across the map. Well, how can you tell which one's coming? First, you should never aim down sights on this part of the encounter, and the goal is to stay alive and getting attacks out during the brief period of damage. To be able to tell which attack is as follows: if you see the witness wave his hand to the right, then it will be 2 right swipes coming. To tell if it's a far swipe or a close swipe is by looking at the witness's hands and seeing if it's in your field of vision. If it's a far swipe, his hand will be outside of the screen and you will kinda not see any AoE indication on the ground behind you, and then he will do an attack. Then he will follow by an attack where you can see his hand within your view. If it is a left swipe, it's the same thing on the opposite side. And if it's a portion where you'll have to jump, the witness will kinda lean back and then his eyes will glow, and then you'll hear that sword noise one more time. Once again, there will be an attack where you'll have to move while jumping, and on his 3rd cycle, he will slam the ground to where you have to jump off the platforms before he kills you, and go back to killing ads from the beginning again. Some items of note is that 1 subjugator will spawn every time you shoot a button successfully with a Glyph Keeper buff, depending on the side the hand was shot on. Next, if you're using freezing grenades, it will be harder for the runners to see the shapes and colors on the arm, but not impossible. Also, the new Still Hunt Sniper is amazing for boss damage here, especially with the Hunter's Celestial Nighthawk. And whenever you pop your super, it will have a reticle for the sniper while not aiming down the sights, and this is huge for this encounter. Lastly, when getting close to the final stand, make sure you're topped off with ammo, as this is a quicker final stand and you could end up wiping. And with that, you've completed Salvation's Edge. And if you're curious on how LFG Destiny players interacted with each other, feel free to watch my raid personality skit provided here. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. Thank you.